Hey Fitheads, today we talk with Jake Steiner from endmyopia.org, and he's now made me realize that the reason I wear glasses is my own fault.
Well, it's to look cool, but it's actually hurting you. It's hurting you and making your eyes worse and making your eyesight all. It's like freezing your eye. Oh, I know what it is. Hey, has your mom ever said if you make this face, it'll stick that way? Well, but that's true for your eyeballs, apparently. Or that's what Jake told us. Is that right? That's right.
Yeah, that's a really good analogy, honestly. It's that we're overworking our eyes and then they're spasming and then getting locked in a not good place, and that's why we can't see.
And it sounds kind of out there a little bit, and he acknowledged it, and we had a healthy amount of skepticism, I think, politely, obviously, but
Hmm.
you know, he had the perfect comeback, which was, oh, just measure it. If you don't believe me, try it yourself. Like, write it down, see how your eyes are, this, that, and the other thing. And then that was really the mind bottling part for me, was I was like, what do it just made me realize that it's more fluid, and that staring at, like, my eyesight's going to be worse after I watch TV for 4 hours, or my eyesight's going to be worse after I look at my phone for 3 hours, or oh, I don't know, like
Eat something
monks
crappy.
or librarians, when they read tiny little text by
Yeah.
candlelight for years and years and years, and suddenly, I don't know, have you ever known anybody in medical school? They all get glasses.
Nerds.
Nerds. Welcome to Total Fitheads.
Serious fitness for not so serious people.
Hey Jake, welcome. Thanks for chatting with us.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm psyched to discuss this. We have yet to talk about eyesight and any form of that type of health on this podcast yet. So let's go for it.
Yeah, nobody does. Somehow, eyesight is not a topic. I don't know why.
Yeah. Have you found it's an uphill battle to try and get information out there?
Um, well, I'm not pushing it that hard. For me, it's more the goal is if you don't have great eyesight and you would like better answers, that you can find some. So just the people looking for it, being able to get to that there is a way will be my goal.
Got it. Identifying the audience versus creating a new one.
Yeah.
Okay. So, can you give the fit heads the basics about myopia and your mission?
So the basics, myopia, nearsightedness or short-sightedness, depending on where you live, if you need glasses to see clearly at a distance, right? And at some point in your life, this hasn't always been the case. So at some earlier point in your life, you didn't need glasses. And then most likely your parents took you to the optometrist. Your optometrist said you're genetically faulty, sold you glasses at a huge profit margin. And from then on, your eyes just slowly got what they call worse and worse and worse, to where you're at today, where you wear contacts or glasses or had LASIK or considering LASIK. And I'm saying that none of this is true. It's not a genetic defect. It's entirely environmental, and it's completely reversible. And the treatment actually causes more of the problem.
Hmm. The treatment causing more of the problem doesn't seem like a new thing. I feel like there are more examples of that beyond
Yeah,
just
it's
your
it's
eyes.
it's creating like they call them prescriptions, but I like jokingly call it subscriptions, because that's basically you become a subscriber to their product.
Okay, so you're saying that, well, I have poor eyesight. I'm wearing contacts right now, and it's not my parents' fault. It has nothing to do with DNA.
Absolutely nothing. And I always put this up front because I'm just a crazy dude on the internet, not even an awesome beard, rambling about this stuff. Yes. But scholar.google.com is, whenever I hear a thing that I haven't heard before that seems far-fetched but curious, I go to scholar.google.com, because that's just clinical research. Not to say that all clinical research is true, but at least it's a more focused destination. And you type in pseudomyopia, pseudo, Pseudo, as in not real. Another popular term is near-induced transient myopia, which sounds like a lot of jargon, but near-induced meaning caused by near work, basically. Transient meaning it would be temporary, and of course, myopia. You're going to get tens of thousands of search results that explain why your eyesight is bad. And it's not at all genetic.
So
So I
it's
stopped
reading.
there.
Too much reading.
Books, that's what's hurting your health.
It's close up. So what happens is eyeball is a super cool thing. If you're a big nerd, it's a fluid filled ball, right? And in the front is a flexible lens that focuses the light depending on how far close you look. And in the back of the ball is a retina that receives that focused beam of light, travels to the brain. In between is a ball filled with fluid. As with all body things, it's not perfect, right? Like it's always kind of moving around a bit, flexing. So it has a built-in mechanism to adjust its size, and the lens in the front adjusting for how far or near you look. So it's a pretty complex and pretty awesome piece of biological engineering. So there's a circular muscle around the lens, and the closer you look at something, the tighter that muscle gets, called ciliary muscle. And it doesn't have a strong feedback mechanism like your arm would if you're lifting something and you just keep holding on to it, which is basically what happens when you look at a book or a screen. That muscle just stays tight to bulge that lens out to focus the light up close. And eventually that muscle spasms. It just gets stuck. So what pseudomyopia and induced transient myopia and the tens of thousands of clinical studies and peer-reviewed science state is it's not a weird genetic, who knows what it is thing. It's a stuck muscle. So at some point in your life, you're probably in school, you're probably studying, reading a bunch of books, muscle gets stuck. It's like if you take a camera into manual focus mode and you just leave it on close distance and then you look with the lens somewhere far, everything's blurry. But that's just because the lens is in close-up mode.
So then it's caused by, all of this close-up looking. And are you saying that like back when we were cave people, we weren't doing that as much, and so they were seeing fine and didn't need glasses?
Well, you're a tricky one. trying to go me into the cave people thing. I know what Max thinks about the cave people argument.
Yeah, they're hot.
Yeah, no, I'm not a huge, like, I don't know about the cave people argument, but it's certainly not designed to be up in close-up mode continuously that much, right? Like the muscle is meant to move. Like you're meant to look at something up close for a while, it's fine. But even when you look at something up close, or even if you're doing something up close, that muscle is always in motion because you're not fixed body position, fixed distance, staring at the same thing. And the muscle just stays like this, possibly for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours. And then when you go from now you want it fully relaxed as you're looking into the distance, maybe it'll relax halfway, but it won't go all the way. So now you get a little bit of blur just because that muscle didn't go fully back into relaxed distance vision mode.
Okay, so at that point, then you get a prescription because you can't see.
Yeah, so clear curved pieces of plastic, far less risky than all kinds of stuff you can buy over the counter, turn into prescriptions because millions were spent in lobbying to protect the profit margins. There's a great article in the LA Times I quote a lot, 5,000% markup. Those plastic lenses cost $2 to $5 wholesale to the optometrist. Whatever they charge you on top of that's profit, and it's often hundreds of dollars. So the prescriptions, even though there's no health risk to put plastic in front of your eyes, to protect the profit margin, right? So you get those glasses, and then the second part happens where eventually you become dependent on those glasses that when you take them off, you can't see clearly anymore.
So they're locking you into that spasm state.
Yeah, well, kind of. So what happens is, for the nerdy ones, the eyeball, right? Like, so there's the lens and the muscle focusing. The eyeball has an adjustment mechanism built in. What I was talking about before, like fluid-filled ball, never perfect. Part of the retina has a mechanism that checks, am I the right length? And the way that works, the super simplified version is light focuses on the retina, and the retina checks, does some of the light focus in front of it or behind it, right? If some of it focuses in front of it, the eyeball tries to shorten. And when somewhat focused behind it, the eyeball elongates. This is a process that happens throughout your life, this adjustment system. And what happens is when you wear glasses minus lenses, they move the light further back in your eye to compensate for the muscle spasm. And that engages that mechanism that makes the eyeball elongate. So your eyeball physically gets longer to adjust for the lens use. And as it gets longer, the light is even further away from the retina. So now you really need glasses to see, and you progressively need stronger glasses because the eyeball for time will continue to keep adjusting for that.
Oh,
And it's called,
I mean,
by the way, that's called lens-induced myopia. For the people like, because you go to the optometrist and you ask him this, so he'll be like, absolutely not. That's crazy talk. Lens-induced myopia. And you're going to find tens of thousands of clinical studies. They tried this on fish. They tried this on birds. They tried this on monkeys. They tried this on humans. And not only have they shown that the eyeball elongates, they've also shown that the eyeball shortens when you reverse that. So completely well known in clinical science, and these are all optometry and ophthalmology journals that cite this. So there's a weird divide between academia of the same group of people and the retail sellers who say it's mysterious, it's genetic, we don't know. Where the academia says, yeah, absolutely. And then you put glasses on people, then you really lock them into this cycle.
so we're all just walking around with long eyes.
Yeah, exactly. That's what we're doing.
Overprescribing, I mean, especially in the United States, a lot of people have problems with healthcare and overcharging for insulin, for example. Does this happen in every country?
I don't know. In a lot of countries, glasses are not prescription. So here, for example, I'm temporarily, I don't know, with what's going on currently in the world, I'm in Thailand. You can go buy minus glasses, plus glasses, whatever you want, anywhere you want, and there is no prescription. And, and predictably they cost $10. But you just wander in there and you go, yeah, I want a -3. And they go, all right, here you go. You want to test? No? All right, fine. Yeah, it depends.
What I want to test.
Yeah, I know. I'm good. I'll have these. And the same is true, by the way, in the US for plus lenses, reading glasses. Same concept, right? Like if these things are so dangerous and you're going to die if you put them on unprescribed, you can go to the drugstore and buy reading glasses of all varying sorts of powers that do the same thing, but in reverse, right? Like that's for people where the light focuses behind the eye and you need to move it a little bit to the front. All glasses do is just they refocus where the light hits the retina. But those you can buy, those they don't care about.
So then what do you suggest people do? Change their behavior or change their eye doctor?
God, I'm not going to get into whenever eye doctor, I'm always saying they're like dentists or doctors too, right? Like they don't love that though. So kids, it starts with kids. It's terrible. Kids, if you have kids, you have kids. I have kids. No, none of this distance, right? Like the closer you get, the tighter that muscle gets. So if you turn a phone into a babysitter, an iPad into a babysitter, and you've got a short-armed little baby, having that thing that close, muscle spasm, right? Little kids start squinting, parents freak out, take them to the optometrist. Optometrist says, oh, genetic, we don't know what it is. Here's 5,000% profit markup lenses. Now your kid rapidly gets into high diopter glasses. So that's where the whole thing starts, is manage the close-up, right? Like print an eye chart or buy an eye chart, hang it up at home. The whole test of testing your eyes for myopia is the big charade of, the coat and the office. It's just an eye chart. Hang up the eye chart. Which lines can you read? We watched 4 hours of Netflix. Which lines can you read now? It's going to be worse, right? Like play too much computer games, spend too much time studying, look at the eye chart. Oh, you can't read the same line you normally can. It's time to go play outside, right? Like recognizing when that muscle spasm happens and dealing with that instead of running to the optometrist is the first step. You will never need glasses if you do that. You will never, ever, ever need them. If you already do wear glasses and they're low enough power where you don't need them for computer use, always take them off. because they're meant for distance vision. So the closer up you're looking at something, the more the glasses will make light focus behind the retina, the more the eyeball will want to elongate. So if you're still in a territory where you don't need them, just take them off when you don't need them. And if you're in higher diopters, like if you always wear those things, recognize that wearing distance glasses for close-up creates a lot of eye strain that you're not noticing because you're used to it. But if you were to not do that, like you always wear weaker glasses for all your screen time for a month, you cannot go back to wearing distance glasses for close-up, because as soon as you do, you're going to feel dizzy and strained and uncomfortable. It's a feedback mechanism that's become super muted by the fact that you always do it. So like you're wearing contact lenses right now. If for a month you just went, okay, all my close-up is glasses, just all of it, right? Lower diopter. You go at one diopter or 1.5 diopter lower. You can see clearly to the screen, but not any further. You do that for a month, you will never go back to wearing full power distance glasses for your close-up. A lot better for your eyes in terms of eye strain. And from there, if you want, you can slowly wean yourself off just by wearing slightly weaker glasses that challenge your eyes a tiny little bit. And every 3 to 4 months or so, you can make another tiny little reduction until eventually you don't need them.
Well, dang.
It's too simple and not that exciting. Like I tell the story and it's kind of anticlimactic because you go, really, that's all there's to it? Yeah.
And it is small increments like that.
Tiny little increments. I had -5 diopter or -4.75 when I started this. And it made my eyes like tiny, right? Because as the stronger your glasses are, the more they compress everything. So I had these little piggy eyes behind these thick glasses. And I am, or most was, an analyst. So I was dealing in the stock market and investing and stuff. So I always look at causes of things and understanding things. And this became the same topic. One day I went to the optometrist by myself. My parents out of the house asked the same question, like, why is this? What's going on here? And they said genetic. And that just doesn't make sense. Like all humans in the world in the last 50 years didn't have a random genetic mutation at the same time that makes us all not be able to see, right? That's not how genetics work. So I'm like, that can't be happening. And since this was almost 20 years ago, there was no fancy internet, find everything easy. So I went to libraries and I found this stuff, right? Like, because I'm not a doctor, I'm not an optometrist, I don't know anything, but I'm an analyst. I analyze what's going on. And I found the cause, and I speculated that this mechanism is still healthy and working. And I started wearing weaker glasses. And I didn't know what I was doing back then. So it was really kind of a rough sort of approach. Like if somebody stuck you in a gym and you know nothing about it other than somebody said, if you lift heavy things, you get stronger. I started from that perspective. But eventually, I mean, we're talking now, I don't wear glasses. I don't need glasses. I've got perfect eyesight.
That's incredible.
It's silly, you know?
And how long was that commitment?
It's a diopter a year, more or less. So every 3 to 4 months, you can reduce 1/4 of a diopter, which is the smallest decrement. And if you have good habits, and this is one of those things where if you get into this because you're like, yeah, maybe better eyesight could be nice, it's a little bit of a learning curve because you will have to start recognizing bad habits. Like you can measure your eyesight, you can see a lot better in natural ambient light. So for example, if your computer is next to a window and you measure the distance, how far you can see before things get blurry, the distance is going to be larger. If it's artificial light, the distance is going to be smaller. If you eat a bunch of carbs, pizza, if you get a big insulin spike, you have a big Coke with it, your vision will be noticeably worse. If you didn't sleep well, or you're stressed, or you're having a fight, your vision may be worse. So you're starting to notice, I have to take care of all these little environmental things in order to see well, right? And then you have to address you don't have to, but you end up in a space where you go, maybe I'm spending too much time looking at my phone. Maybe I shouldn't watch Netflix on my iPad. Maybe I need the TV distance. So once you get into that cycle, it's not just, I want better eyesight, but you're noticing this is not really great for me. And eventually you end up in a place where or at least for a lot of people, where in the end, where you don't need glasses, you also addressed a lot of the little things that weren't great for your eyes.
So
I mean,
this sounds less like like eye exercises versus like getting rid of bad habits that are locking you in or hurting you. Is that right?
Yeah, eye exercise don't work.
Yeah.
It's the popular thing on the internet. It's a slow enough process to where committing to eye exercises would be, most people wouldn't have the patience, and it doesn't really address the cause, right? Like you can do all the exercise you want. The cause of the problem is staring at the screen super long, right? Like what you need is a break from that. You need better lighting, you need a better diet, you need an outdoor hobby. That's what you need. Like eye exercises are a popular idea because initially you get some results just because you're aware, but it doesn't force you to go address, close up addictions to phones and stuff. So people like it. Like you get an immediate result. Yay, that's cool. And then you forget about it and you're back to where you were, right? Like it's habit adjustment is the way to go.
do you have a specific limit on close up for yourself?
3 hours at one time. If I go past 3 hours, that muscle doesn't relax again for me. It varies from person to person. It's super easy to do because I like eye charts because they have smaller lines and larger and larger and larger. So it's a handy tool. You hang it up in your office or wherever you are, you get a benchmark, right? Like you look at that chart every so often in general, you figure out what's the best line the smallest line that I can see ever. You went for a hike, you had a great weekend, right? Like you just check the chart to figure out what's your peak performance. And then when you work, once in a while, look at it and be like, it's 2 lines worse than best. And then right. And you spend another hour and then it's like, I can't see that third line anymore that I could see an hour ago. It tells you when that muscle is just stuck. So when you develop that, you go, okay, my personal limit, for me, it's 3 hours. And then I try to get an hour break. I mean, I'm kind of spoiled because I got a flexible lifestyle, but enough of a break to where when you return to that place, you can see all the lines again, or the lines that you could see before. Like it's a super easy way to go, okay, that muscle's not happy right now.
Yeah, I mean, all of the other muscles in my body are unhappy. I don't see why my eyes would be doing just fine.
There you go. That's the attitude. I totally agree with that.
And
yeah. It's the joke aside though, there is not motivation is a huge factor, right? Because I've got friends with contacts and they're like, yeah, whatever, Jake. It takes me exactly 12 seconds to go, pop those things in my eyes. I'm good. Corneal thinning, like not today, but you wear those things for 20 years, your cornea gets thinner. Also on Google Scholar, not reversible, right? So when you're older, you're going to compromise the bit that holds your eye together over time, the pressure of the contact lens. You can scratch it potentially. That tends to fix itself though. Also an elongated eyeball, the retina is attached to the back. It's not the same piece, right? Like it's like glued, terrible word. And if your eyeball is elongated, that attachment suffers, like it's strained. And eventually you get something called, I'm not a doctor, lattice degeneration. You can get retinal detachment. Any impact is going to be a bigger risk because the attachment is just strained. So having that elongated eyeball is just not long-term is a risk factor, right? Contacts work great, like they fix your problem today. But if you're thinking long-term and you don't want to be older at some point and potentially dealing with issues, it's a great idea to just go, it'll help me understand that part of my body better. It'll lead me to better habits. And then I'm not stuck with this stuff in my eyes. Maybe. My friends ignore it. So,
I mean, I also look dope in glasses. So.
Right. I agree. Like there's so many reasons not to mess with it. Right. And also I own a ton of lens stock. So as people keep buying more of these, I just make money. So.
Yeah, you truly see this as not just an intellectual failing. It's actually malicious and people trying to get money through these lies.
No. I don't think I used to, but now I've come to realize there's no evil on a if you zoom in on the individual level, right? Like somebody works at a lens company, they got kids and they do some marketing and they're nice people. There's nobody there. I own lens stock. Like I pray for more people to get glasses because I make more money. It's the system becomes something that doesn't serve us on a whole, but there's not a bad guy. There's not a, like I don't think there's a conspiracy. It just turns out that when we make this a for-profit thing and lots of people make money off of it, now we're stuck with a system that we all depend on. And most people wear glasses, exactly what you said. Like, number one, I love my screens. People don't say that, but screen addiction is a huge thing. And then we've got, well, glasses look cool on me and contact lenses work fine. So supply and demand is absolutely there. People don't want to hear about it, and the optometrist is happy to make money. So it's just human nature.
And what are your thoughts on LASIK?
LASIK is amazing. I mean, it's like a permanent contact. It doesn't fix anything, right? The contact lens that you're wearing changes where light refracts, right? Like it changes the focal plane in your eye. Contact lens does the same thing, but instead of a piece of plastic doing it, they cut it straight into your cornea, which is genius. I only ever had one I have a podcast, but it's only about people's improvement stories. I only ever interviewed one actual outsider person, Dr. Morris Waxler, the head of the FDA surgical devices, who got LASIK approved. He's 85 now. He's got like Einstein hair all over the place. I would recommend listening to it. You'll cringe at my terrible interviewing skills, but he got LASIK approved. He spent an hour talking about behind the scenes what happened at the FDA, their requirements for approving LASIK. Literally, I quote him. He said, we had two requirements to get LASIK approved. One, you could see the 20/20 line on an eye chart, which he says means nothing as far as how well you can actually see. And number two, the eyeballs didn't fall out of your head. This is not some dude. This is the head of the FDA surgical devices who got it approved. He's like, we didn't have any real requirements. We didn't check. He says, you cut the cornea, the nerves are cut, so you have no pain sensations for a year. After that, who knows? You might have pain forever. But we didn't check for that. That wasn't part of the requirements. And he's like, it's a real issue. He says 30% of people have permanent dry eyes. It was not a requirement for them to check. I would recommend either chatting with the man or just Googling him or even listening to the episode we did for an hour. The stuff he talked about was shocking. Like imagine, like, it's an 85-year-old dude, fascinating hair, really serious. He sent me all the references to everything he was going to talk about beforehand. So none of it was just, him spouting off. He says it's a terrible idea. It should have never been approved. And he spent the rest of his life campaigning to get that approval reversed. Of course, no chance, right? But he's still alive. And that's the dude who knows more than anybody else on how and why that got approved by the FDA, who says should have never been done.
Oh, that's scary.
It's amazing. It's amazing because my parents are doctors. Like, I'm fairly mainstream. I'm not, I don't get into conspiracy stuff. I don't have the mental energy to deal with all those things. And to me, the FDA was always kind of they take care of stuff. Hearing the actual guy say, we had no guidelines for this, it's kind of shocking and changed my relationship, my idea of what these organizations do.
I think that's a healthy skepticism. When you're it's sort of when you're a little kid, you think that cops are nice, honest people, for example. And then,
right.
Or you think that doctors are smart or lawyers are honest or whatever. And then you find one guy in whatever thing that sort of shatters that illusion for you. And then from then on, you're like, well, wait a minute, hold on. They could be a jerk. I don't know.
And LASIK can work out fine. Like, for anybody who's had LASIK and it's fine, sweet, awesome. It's a fallacy, though, to base your own decision whether to get LASIK on that N equals 1, somebody had a good experience story, right? Like, you want to go, what's the percentage of risk? And what is the benefit, and do I want to take that risk? Maybe you do. I would recommend a little, skepticism.
It's just your eyes.
Yeah, whatever. You've got two of them.
What about blue light?
It gets into a lot of other topics, right? Because it affects sleep cycles. There's all kinds of things. Spectrum of light is a big topic in general that I know very little about, very few things. Like I know how you can get rid of glasses. Blue light gets into all kinds of stuff I know nothing about.
Mm-hmm.
One thing that I would caution is it's sort of like Coke Zero to me. Like if I buy these blue Barker glasses, which by the way, those coatings cost 3 cents wholesale, right? Like it's a huge story to make money. For sure. If I put these on, we don't need to talk about my screen addiction. We don't need to talk about my lifestyle. We don't need to, it's fine. The problem that I had with screens was the blue light. Keep the anchovies off the pizza, drink Coke Zero, you're good. There's certainly, what I'm saying is there's certainly an issue potentially with too much blue light exposure, but that's not really a problem. The problem is that you're spending, you work all day in front of a screen and then you come home and you don't talk to your kids, you're playing on your phone, and then you watch 6 hours of YouTube and Netflix and then you sleep. That's more it than the blue light.
Okay. We've had a number of people on about that were interested in DNA testing and, personalization of medicine being the future. But you're saying that there's no DNA test, no amount of my spit would show that I would have bad eyes.
No. Okay. So there
More
are
spit.
personalized medicine. I love it. You know what I mean? It's just, not caveman, but there's a lot of things that interacting with our environment the way we're intended would fix, it seems like. There are genetic markers that have been found that affect the development of myopia. So yes, it's not that your eyes are bad genetically for most people that wear glasses today. It's how much worse will your eyes get behind lenses. So it appears, and this is not that well established yet, but it appears that the mechanism that controls how much your eyeball adjusts has a genetic component. So for example, there's certain Asian populations that have that marker, and their eyes respond much more dramatically to lenses than certain other populations. So you've got these groups of people that have maybe -9, -10, double-digit myopia, though the behavior seems to be the same as other groups of people. Right. So there is a genetic component, but it's not that you have bad eyes, but how your eyes respond to the environmental stimulus.
Okay. So then how do you explain when people's prescriptions do stop changing? Because
there's some point where you reach an equilibrium where your eye, that part of the genetic thing where your eye just goes, okay, this is good enough. There's not too much light focusing behind the eye. You're just not creating additional strain to make the eye go infinitely keep growing longer, fortunately, right? But for some people, it's dramatically worse than others. And it seems there is a genetic component, and then it seems there's an environmental component, which could be anything from the primary thing, your close-up habits, to other stuff like diet, because I've got people that have -20, and that sucks, right? Yeah, so in a way you're lucky, like wherever you ended up. And for us, mostly it seems like -3 to -5 is kind of the range. But for some people, and it seems like especially Asian populations have much higher adopters than we do.
Is there a point of no return where if you hit 20, then you're not coming back?
I haven't found one, right? It seems that the eye always responds to that stimulus. And it's a speculation, by the way. Like what I'm saying about how this happens, clinical science validates pretty well. Me claiming that the eyeball shortens because of what I say we do with low adopter glasses is unproven, right? Like that's entirely debatable. Lots of people have done it over many years. It seems to work practically, but nobody's had a clinical study that measured the axial length of a group of people before and after this. So debatable. But it appears that when you wear slightly lower power glasses, a little bit of the light focuses in front of the retina. That mechanism is active till the day you die. The eyeball slightly appears to shorten. So goes the theory. In practice, anybody who I've dealt with who've done this has reported it's like 90%, like not everybody, but to a very large extent, independent of the diopters or age, reported that, yeah, if I wear slightly lower diopter glasses, have good habits, after 3 or 4 months, I see better with those glasses.
And you're your own first subject, right?
Yeah, and this was never an intention of mine, right? Like I'm into the stock market. Like for me, money making is far easier than having podcasts trying to explain this. This is more of a, it's, I fell into this trap, right? Like it turned me from loving sports. I played water polo. It was my favorite sport as a kid. And needing stronger and stronger glasses kicked me out of that sport. Like it made me kind of an introvert because when you wear glasses, you have no peripheral vision. So you have anxiety. And certainly like sports where balls come flying from the periphery where you can't see them knocking off your glasses makes you fearful, right? And then you're scared and you're a kid and other kids are acutely aware of that and they're little monsters, right? So I started just reading books and hiding slowly over time. And I feel that this kind of information should be out there, one for parents and two for people who are just like, I don't want this as my permanent life to be findable, right? Like I'm not so much financially motivated as somebody should be talking about that there's an option.
Yeah, and in general, getting screens away from children is a great idea, even if you're not talking about their eyes.
It's crazy. It is crazy. Like I was in Hong Kong before this whole fun time started. And just in the subway, you see strollers and little kids holding on to iPads. And that's not going to end well. You know, it's just standing there going, oh, this will define that kid's future in so many ways. And the parent just doesn't know, you know, like you go to McDonald's, you know, that's not good for you. But just like you said, I like glasses. If you're making that conscious choice, that's your gig. But if the people selling you that saying, here's the potential side effects, I'd already be fine. It's just that they say it's genetic, you're defective, there's nothing you can do about it. You must use this treatment.
And the Olympics are brought to you by McDonald's.
God, right? Yeah.
Is there a time when you shouldn't train your eyes?
Yeah, I mean, balance, right? Like people get into this and you can overdo anything. If you spend all the time in front of screens, that's what you're used to. And then suddenly you're introducing a ton of distance vision and you're reducing the diopters of your glasses. It's also strain. Like if I tell you tomorrow that the gym will make you strong and now you go to the gym 3 times a day and lift giant weights, not good for you, right? And it's a big issue with the people that get excited about this. They're all in, you know, and I'm saying we want to make tiny little adjustments and look at it as a slow migrating, maybe review of lifestyle things.
Can you you mentioned earlier about diet. Can you delve into that a little bit more, or is that sort of
also like I know very little about anything.
Glad to have
I can
you on.
tell you how to get rid of glasses, right? Like that's kind of the extent of my knowledge. We have a bunch of nerds in our forum. We have a cool forum with a bunch of nerds. And people did, for example, one I remember, they did the implantable glucose meter things. A couple of them.
Got one on right now.
Not doing that. But a correlation between insulin spikes. I'm not implanting anything. Insulin spikes and worse vision, because you can measure it, right? Like, so the way diopters work, super simple, is a diopter's inverse meters. So your glasses prescription, that number isn't some mysterious, confusing numbers. It's just 100 divided by the distance you can see equals diopters, distance in centimeters. So if you have -2 diopter glasses, 100 divided by 2 is 50. So you can see 50 centimeters before there's blur. You don't need an optometrist to figure this out for you. They just don't like telling you this. But that's all it is. So if you can read, if you see, put a book in front of you and you move it back slowly further and further, and at 50 centimeters, there's a tiny bit of blur, just the smallest, any kind of change, that tells you this is the point where the focal plane is not correct. If that's 50 centimeters, if you wear -2 diopter glasses, you have perfect vision, right? Like super easy to measure. And if you measure it at home, you start noticing, for example, the insulin spikes takes that number down. Not for everybody, not to the same degree, like, biology is complicated, but there's definitely, it appears to be a correlation between that insulin spike and that centimeter distance, the amount, how far you can see before there's blur, decreasing for around the period of time that you have that insulin spike.
Crazy.
Makes sense. I mean, I never thought of it, but it makes total sense. What about
I didn't
Why? Because
know.
it's tied to inflammation, or
I don't
that
know.
if we have a lot of energy in our blood, we shouldn't see the lion that we're chasing.
I don't know. I honestly, I fell into this topic, right? Like, it wasn't my intention to be the
Tripped because
dude.
you couldn't see.
Huh. Good one. I like you. I like the sarcasm. That's exactly my thing. Yeah. Yeah. Question everything. I like it. Don't know why. There's people that are way more into this than I am. I'm super simple. I'm just telling you this way makes your eyes better. That's all I know. And then the people that over the years started piling in, some of them have totally different perspectives and ideas and viewpoints and try things and have conversations. And stuff like this diet stuff is other people having discoveries. And I always say I'm the librarian. I'm just like, I share what people find.
Interesting. How do
Glasses
you?
are cool.
They are. I mean, as soon as I fix my actual myopia, I'm gonna wear fake glasses still.
I was a kid. I loved getting glasses.
Yeah.
Like I am not the right guy to be talking about this stuff in general. Like I love phones. I want to be a phone addict as much as possible. I don't want to go
Yeah,
outside.
right.
I don't care about the blah, 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 better lifestyle stuff on so many levels. And I think glasses look cool, right? Like I'm in a weird spot. I can't shut up because you see parents and kids playing on iPads going, ugh, sucks.
The idea that I shouldn't be looking at this screen with contacts really freaks me out, though, because it makes sense that if you're changing the way your lens is working so you can see far, it's also going to change what's going on here.
It does. A month and you're never going back to that. Like, I mean, you will physically feel beyond just slightly uncomfortable. Like you'll be dizzy and there'll be pressure on you. You're used to it. You could just wear reading glasses. I don't super recommend it because now you got 2 pairs of focal plane changes, but technically you could put on a +1 or a +1.5, which reduces the minus of your contact lenses by that same amount. It's kind of a hacky way to do it, but if you just, I have to wear the contact lenses, I just need 30 minutes in front of a screen, I don't want to take them out, putting on the reading glasses will have the same effect.
That makes sense. Huh. Okay. Well, how do you explain people with perfect vision? Because there are plenty of people out there that are looking at their screens and eating crap diets and still see perfectly.
It took me a long time to figure this out. And my answer to this is they're assholes. I don't know if you can use that word. I don't know. I had this giant black dog. It was a lab mix. All that freaking dog would ever do is sleep and eat. And he was just this defined, muscular, perfect looking creature all the time. Asshole. Right? Like the eye's not adjusting to the length. There's something we don't know about them. Maybe they have a surfing habit or they cycle and that hour gets them all the distance vision they need. Maybe they don't have the genetic marker that makes the eye super responsive to those changes. I don't know. And I don't have a way to test. It's not super common, right? Like, for example, in Hong Kong and I believe in Singapore, the onset of myopia in children is over 90%. So school-age children, over 90% of them wear glasses. So there aren't that many assholes who are lucky enough to get away with it, it seems.
I mean, I think my only other question, or my horrifying pressing question is, what about a hangover?
Try it.
Okay, well, see,
I mean, this is like what gets you into this. Like, for example, you wear contact lenses and you listen to this and I get you. You're half sarcastic. I'm sarcastic about everything. So I'm a big fan. And half you're like, that's interesting. But tomorrow you've got, another podcast thing and you're doing your sports stuff and you have a million things to do and you forget about it. The thing that gets you into this is measuring. You buy a little measuring tape and you just go, how far can I see? How far can I see after the hangover? And you write it down. And then blow me off, ignore this topic, just measure once in a while. And you go, this light definitely makes a difference, right? And this other light sucks. And then eventually you go, maybe I'm not going to wear these for close up. And then eventually you go, I have a -3 for distance, for example, whatever the number is. Maybe dummy has a point. I'm just going to buy a -2.75 just for the hell of it. And you don't wear any glasses for half a day, just live in blur so your visual cortex resets, doesn't know how strong those glasses were. You put on the slightly weaker one or contacts, same difference. And then you're like, well, I can kind of see the same, right? Except at night, where at night you're like, okay, this is a little tiny bit more challenging. And then you forget about it for 3 or 4 months. But when you're in a dark Starbucks and you're trying to read the menu up there and you're like, oh, I'm having to challenge myself. Certain less than ideal lights will be challenging. That hangover will be more noticeable. But after a few months, not anymore. And then you go, oh, maybe I'll reduce those a tiny little bit again. And that's, if you have good habits, if you're not a shut-in who lives in front of screens, that'll do it, right? Like there's not much more to it than that.
It also makes me think that depending upon when in the day or what you ate before or where you are in your cycle, when you go to the optometrist, you may get a different prescription, which is crazy.
100%. I mean, I've told people in the past, we've had little bets because somebody was like, well, you're full of something. And I'm like, all right, go to 5 different optometrists. And if you get 4 of the same results, I'll give you whatever, right? We're placing a bet. You won't. You will not, right? Because if, for example, if you drove there and it's in the morning and it's a Saturday, you're going to have a different result than if you took the bus, you played on your phone the whole way. It's 5 p.m. You were at work all day. You ate junk food. You're sitting in the waiting room another half an hour. Then they put you in a dark room with a projected chart. That number will be completely different.
Dang.
And you don't realize that this is a changing value based on what's going on. And that's what gets you into it. That's why I say measure. Hangover is a great example. Have one, see what happens.
I don't need more data telling me not to drink. I'm already convinced.
But maybe not. Like I've had people go, if I drink a glass of wine, my vision in the morning is actually better. And I'm like, there you go. I don't care. What I care
You heard
about
it here, folks. Wine cures eyesight problems. Fact.
100%. No, but maybe it does that for you. And the only thing I'm interested in is that you're interested enough to go have an experience, because as soon as you do, you're making friends with this bit of your biology. And instead of just ignoring it, you're like, well, I guess I will do this or not do this a little bit.
I know. This is a whole other body part I didn't even know I needed to be stressing about.
You don't. It's so relaxing. It is a super positive experience because number one, you start wearing lower diopters for computer use. After a month, you'll be like, this is so much better. I've had so many people talk to me who have headaches and weird just stuff going on. Reducing the diopters, not in every case, right? You can have headaches for a million reasons. But generally speaking, this whole experience is not stressful. It's just you're dialing it down a little bit, right? Like the dependence, and you're having a little bit more of an experience of you're never paying attention to the sign across the street or license plates, right? And you buy slightly lower diopter contact lenses, and all of a sudden it's a little bit of a game to go, well, I can read this, I can't read that, right? Nighttime, for example, like turn on the subtitles in foreign films and wear slightly lower diopter glasses. And now you have 2 hours of relaxing, but you're also reading a subtitle. So now you got 2 hours of a little bit of engagement of those eyeballs. It's just little, it's like a little tweak. No, don't stress about it.
Well, interesting.
We had a guy on who, do you remember the light guy, Allie? The
Oh, I
infrared?
do.
He was like, if you want to cure your eyesight, just stare into the sun for a little while every day.
Okay. So the first thing that I'm a boring dude, right? Like, as you can tell by now, causality. Explain to me how what's wrong with my eyes, and what does the sun do that fixes it? What cause is being addressed? That's always my first question, right? Like, because I've done eye acupuncture in Nepal. In the beginning, I didn't know what I was doing, so I tried everything. But I'm like, what's the cost? It's always my first question. Like, what are you addressing with this needle? Like, what's off? What's not right that you're fixing with this? How plausible is the explanation? I'm not a fan of like people who sell you treatment without explaining what cause this addresses. Right? Like, if you don't know what this is fixing, then I don't know if I trust you. Maybe it works. Doesn't mean it doesn't. But it's always handy to go, here's how the biology works, here's how it went wrong, and here's how this tweaks it back in the right direction.
Right.
Look at this.
And the idea of tweaking the problem, not just masking it with lenses, sounds great to me.
But I am with you though. Like, glasses look cool. I have no. Wait. I have these on my desk, no less. Oh, now the focus is bad. There's lenses in them, but they're just transitions for sunglasses. Other than that, they're just clear lenses. See, like, there's no correction.
Very nice.
Yeah.
And they could just be sunglasses, but I like wearing them. I'm with you. Like, I think frames are cool. I mean, I won't put them on because I look like a giant dork. Okay, I will. But I like wearing them.
Yeah.
I'm with you on this. And plus, like, leave me alone. I have my screen addiction. Like, what you said is totally true. Like, we have enough other stuff going on. You don't need another project. I totally get it.
Yeah, but I mean, the dedication to break every 3 hours is smart. And of course, will help your insulin and so many other things too. Posture.
All the stuff's connected. Yeah, posture. So you don't have the problem because you wear contact lenses. This is an infinite topic. But short version, posture. You wear glasses, you have no peripheral vision. Besides anxiety, besides your visual cortex going, yikes, we don't know what's going on here, you have to look at the ground when you walk. So by default, a lot of people look at the ground anyway, but by default, you need to. Because if you wear contacts or you've got good vision, you see the ground from your periphery. So you can look straight, right? You wear glasses, you have to look down. So now your posture is affected. It changes how do you social interact with people because you're looking through that center of that lens. You're training your eyes to only look through the middle of these. So now your neck movement and your eye movement is subtly different. So when you're talking to somebody who is in that, almost subconsciously, you're going, this person's a little weird. But really, it's just because their eyes are staring through the center of the thing. You're missing the natural eye movement and the natural neck movement because, like you're a little robot. So people that seem funky and introverted, it's possibly just the lens use.
This is the science why you used to beat me up in high school, Max. It makes perfect sense.
We just need everybody to start wearing goggles. That's what we really need. You know what I mean?
it's you joke, but there's not enough established science. There's a lot of murkiness, right? Like, clear why myopia happens. But some of this stuff is going on. I believe it's very likely that it's affecting your personality when you're now behind these things. You're protecting your face, right? Like,
I mean,
you're
sorry,
afraid.
I was joking, but I agree. Like,
But
I know the subtleties of social interaction and how easy it is to screw up.
And you're
I'm
funky.
sure my
Now you're a
glasses are the
little
problem.
weird. You're a little weirdo now with these things on your head. And a little weirdo to other kids is just a target, you know?
Interesting.
Yeah. And that's my problem with this whole thing is I will quit doing this if optometry puts a disclaimer on all their stuff saying, here's a side effect, just know about it. That's it.
And here's how much we're making.
Yeah.
God damn, I make so much money off that stuff. It's unbelievable.
I do appreciate your mantra, question everything. That's a part of why we do this podcast.
Yeah. Well, I do. And I sound stupid because it's weird that I am this guy because I'm not this guy, right? Like I'm not there's a lot of jokes on the website about me being the last living eye guru because for one, I hate this institutionalized trust and people's titles and all this stuff, but I'm also the opposite of a guru. Like I love screens. I don't care, you know? It's just once you address it, you go, this affected so many parts of me that like I kite surf. I thought I was the clumsiest person in the world. I would never do that stuff. I paraglide. I'm a fear of heights. All this stuff started when my vision got better. And I'm like, my body can do this stuff. You know, I thought I had my fine motor control wasn't that great. I was kind of, you know, clumsy and weird. I'm having experiences I never thought I would have because I liberated myself from this lens dependence.
Very impressive.
Yeah. Who knows?
Do you ever address farsightedness?
There's two kinds. So there's hyperopia, that's just the same thing. The eyeball's too short instead of too long. The same thing should work, but it's not a common enough thing to where I've focused on it and I can't tell you the details, right? Like how to address it. You know, wear slightly opposite direction diopters. The other thing is presbyopia. You're getting older, the lens hardens. And that just happens. Like we don't know. And so when the lens hardens, the muscle has to work harder to focus it for close up. So you lose some of that very close, clear vision in bad lighting with small text. And you go to the optometrist and the optometrist sells you plus lenses, reading glasses, which move the light. So now the muscle doesn't have to work. But now what happens is now that lens will definitely harden because it's no longer being moved and kept flexible. So once you start wearing plus lenses regularly for close-up work, you become dependent on them and it's much harder to deal with or to reverse because, you know, the lens hardened, it's never being used. The muscle's not working. Now you need them. And it's also not a focus of mine other than that I'm entertained. I used to travel a lot when that was still possible. And in most countries where reading glasses aren't commonly sold, old people see just fine. This is entirely anecdotal, and don't take my key, the main thing that I talk about under this light, but I just jokingly, I wander around. There's old women in developing countries fixing clothes is such a common thing. And I used to have a little side thing where I'm somewhere new and I go, let's see who is fixing clothes. And it's, 80-year-olds that are threading needles, don't need reading glasses. Completely anecdotal. But there seems to potentially be a correlation between you throwing these glasses on, not using that muscle, and then becoming dependent on them. Possibly. Right.
I'm excited. Do my eye push-ups.
Yeah, don't start wearing reading glasses. Like if you notice your vision, your close-up vision getting challenged, you guys are way too young for that. But better lighting, slightly bigger distance, just trying to not immediately reach for plus lenses is probably a good idea. I'm almost 50. I see perfectly fine up close. Means nothing, but yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing your insights. This is fascinating.
Thanks for being friendly and sarcastic about it. I enjoyed it.
I feel like you've been on a lot of podcasts where people just wouldn't listen and didn't actually believe you.
Not really. I think people believe it because it's not that unbelievable. But a lot of times it's just, all right, next episode. And I get that. I have no problem with that. But it's like, some of them even go, send us your questions first. And I'm like, oh, this is going to be exciting. Because you read off the question and you're waiting for me to answer it. And then you read off the next question. I'm like, all right, okay, cool.
Wait, they had you send them the questions?
Yeah, that happens. I mean, 15%.
We got to do that. That sounds
just
way
all
easier.
The questions. I need at least 10 questions. And they're like, oh, we need 10 questions. And then they literally just read off the questions.
Did you have an answer we didn't ask?
I don't know, because I prefer just having a chat, like.
Yeah, of course.
I hired people to make me do podcasts. I don't want to do podcasts. I don't. Like I'm an introvert. I don't like schedules. I live on an island, like I don't want to. But it reaches so many people that at one dumb moment I said I'm going to hire somebody who deals with this. So now I have to do them. Right? That's how this works. And I enjoy the chats once we have them, but every time I see it on my schedule, I'm like, oh, what? This is a good one though.
We'll get
Like,
out of your hair. That's sorry.
No.
We do have another episode to get to, so
No, but my point is, I like if they're all like this. It's like talking to people, having a chat. I think it's super awesome because, like, especially you wear contact lenses. Like, I'm curious what you're gonna do. Like, are you going to, like, maybe buy some plus lenses to wear over top of them? Like, it's totally different from being forced to be on podcasts that are really just, doing episodes to do episodes.
sure. Well, it was good hanging out.
That was fun.
Plus, I like the beard. I wish I could do a beard like that. I really do.
No, me too.
Right? It's just in our faces. You're flexing on everybody with that thing.
Not eye flexing
Yeah. But I'm in Asia, and I wouldn't get past the border in half the places because people are like, what is this? Criminal face.
Criminal face. All right, so let the fitheads know where they can find all your stuff online.
Endmyopia.org is the terrible destination. I'm not trying to be famous, and I'm not trying to make money. So accordingly, it's full of rants and inside jokes and weirdnesses. And there's a ton of articles. So it's initially a little overwhelming, but there's pretty big community. There's a 20-some thousand member Facebook group, and we have a big forum and all kinds of stuff. So it's a great place if you're ready to explore a bit, but it'll be a little bit weird when you first see it, possibly.
20,000 sounds like the podcasts are working.
Yeah, and I think that it's been sort of in that direction before podcasts too. And I never put in any effort. It just sort of does. People do and join and stuff.
Right. Like we said before, you found the tribe that needed the leader, not that you.
The librarian.
I'm not the leader. Yeah, I'm the librarian. Best case scenario.
All right. Well, thanks again.
Awesome. Thanks for having me on. I really do appreciate it. This was not a 10 questions podcast.
Of course. And thank you to the Fitheads. And if you can rate and review on Apple Podcasts, that helps us out a whole lot for our future episodes that will not be talking to him, but other people.
Oh,
And we will see you next week.